depression. I said depression. When depression came, I didn't see. The past in my life had caught up with me. The violent abuse I suffered as a child. My uni education that had been denied. So many things I'd suppressed inside. With nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. In a pitch black tunnel with no light in sight. Depression came like a thief in the night. Don't know if it came from the left or the right. But in denial, I put up a fight. With coke and alcohol abuse to make things right. My appetite for business and money was gone. Life became devoid of fun. A good woman was needed, but I couldn't find none. My chances were 1,000,000,000,000. As suicidal thoughts came along, it took much more than just being strong against a thing so forceful, not so easy to overcome. Alcohol and cocaine, they were the enemy and not my friends. But way back then, I didn't comprehend, as they anesthetized the pain, anger and torment. To forget the years of betrayal from family and friends, and women who came for financial gain. Massive burglaries I suffered again and again, feeling like an outcast with 1,000,000 friends. Committing murder appeared to be justified after the way that I'd been crucified, but somehow God kept me off that path. Because only God could abate my wrath. Because only God could abate my wrath. The absence of light. As I slipped into the darkness at the dawn, in boxes only by the riverbank. Yet somehow I never jumped in. Although the voice that beckoned me from the water was enchantingly convincing. As trains came into the station, my back was glued to the wall, so I wouldn't fall or dive, thus keeping myself alive. I was hanging by a thread instead of a rope. My mortality clung to a glimmer of hope. I wasn't that innocent, having brutalized men and women for pride and money, let down God Almighty, myself, friends and family, and many members of society. Remorse, resentment, regret, guilt, and shame, with feelings and emotions that have no name, that which I can never, ever explain. Accepting life on life's terms gave me the balance and gave me the peace I needed for the power of love to be released, as self-centeredness gradually became deceased. Cleansed with confession and forgiveness, I was no more a prisoner of the past. Now became the only place to be, with the future always looking bright. Now I know that darkness is always the absence of light. I repeat, now I know that darkness is always the absence of light. keeping myself alive. I was hanging by a thread instead of a rope. My mortality clung to a glimmer of hope. I wasn't that innocent, having brutalized men and women for pride and money, let down God Almighty, myself, friends and family, and many members of society. Remorse, resentment, regret, guilt, and shame were feelings and emotions that have no name, that which I could never, ever explain. Accepting life on life's terms gave me the balance and gave me the peace I needed for the power of love to be released, as self-centeredness gradually became deceased. Cleansed with confession and forgiveness, I was no more a prisoner of the past. Now became the only place to be, with the future always looking bright. Now I know that darkness is always the absence of light. I repeat, now I know that darkness is always the absence of light. Ereline. Ereline was my best friend, my cousin and girlfriend. I never ever had to pretend. We lived close together by the sea, on the beach of Lagon. I loved the beauty of her mind and skin, and her spirit deep within. That's my Ereline, childhood sweetheart and darling. So when I had to leave, I was sorely grieved, as I held her hands that night on the stars and full moonlight. Although I was just a child, I felt like a man inside. I touched her intimately, enthralled by her beauty, knowing I'd soon be missing our touching, cuddling, and kissing. Although we were just children, we knew we were more than just friends, and that loving feeling would never end. Now all I'm left with is the loving memory and scent of her presence, now absent, and the sound of the waves that gently kissed the shore, with that sinking feeling, knowing I'd be seeing her no more.
Okay, greetings and greetings and greetings and greetings and greetings. We have the great man Tamara inside the host. Big up to Raga D for a fantastic show. So we are going straight to the cheers, because right about now, as we know that Tamra is the man of the moment, and we're playing his CD, and enough people know I've gravitated towards him because he's a man, he's a very conscious brother, on a conscious path. And one thing I say about him, he loves people. He loves people, he's committed to people. And as I said, your mess has become your message. And he has a message to share to the world. So we're reaching out all over the globe, whether you're in north, south, east, and west. we're reaching out because, as the internet work already know, it's global thing. So we're reach out and get the consciousness out there. See, as you know, the last few weeks we've been touching the whole thing about mental health, well-being. Because reason why we're reaching out because we find say enough people, right, under stress, enough people under mental health. And I use the word mental because we all got mental health. There's mental health, there's physical health, there's spiritual health. And, you will be human. You never cry, laugh, sad, you know, because we're not robots. We are emotion. We're white as emotional creatures. But the things that we're in that state of sadness for weeks, months, even up to a year, then there is a challenge. There is a challenge, and there are tools you can use to get you out of that hole, so to speak. See, one of the things is, music, poetry, writing, connecting with nature. There's so many things we can do. One of the things I'm involved with is talking therapy, where men come together, sit down in a circle, and we just talk, we just reason, let off steam, and we talk about what you're going through that week and see how we can support each other. See? Each one teach one, each one support one. So that's what we're about, We're about empowering the community. And sometimes people might say, boy, you talk about the same thing every single week. Well, it's true. We are talking about the same thing every single week, right? But our motive is that we're looking to empower our community. If we have a healthy mind, right, we'll have a healthy community. If we build a better relationship with each other, we have a healthy community. If we look after our health, right, we'll have a healthy community. So we look at things from a holistic approach. See? So Tamara, Tamara is a conscious man, but he's a health man as well because he was telling us that he sells things like merengue and all these health products to keep, not himself healthy, but other people healthy as well. See? So we're holistic, and that's what I deal with. So we do the mind, body, soul, the spirit, One thing Tamara makes it quite clear, he himself, he meditate and pray to the biggest force, the higher creator. See? That's his foundation, as well as other things what he does. See? So, we're here to reason, right? And what we'll be doing, we'll be touching the whole thing about mostly around Tamra, his experience, what he's been through, because he's had some serious challenges, but now he's overcome those challenges and he's become an ambassador in terms of looking at the whole thing about mental health and well-being, See? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play some more Tamra stuff.
Nigger, the war was flung at me. I simply used to
I'll play it
laugh.
from the beginning, because I was playing it.
No maid in sight. I was given the
Listen
job,
carefully.
but not to my delight. Peeling potatoes, gutting, scaling, and seasoning fish. Changing nappies and making bottles. Sweeping, hoovering, shopping, and laundering. I began to get resentful as I fell far away from heaven. At the tender age of 7, violently abused by my father, enslaved to domestic drudgery by my mother. With hope and prayers I played it cool, but the abuse continued. regardless of how well I did in school. When nigger and wog was flung at me, I simply used to laugh. Until Raymond Ricardo, my school friend, said, they're taking the piss. That's a fact. From then on, I fought in school nearly every day and had to watch out for knife-wielding racist gangs as I traveled from A to B. Feeling robbed of my childhood and still wetting the bed, nerve tablets were prescribed for me. As I questioned the absence of Mammy's healing herb tea, then there was the hernia operation in consequence of lifting things far too heavy for me. Today, those nerve tablets are now called antidepressants, you see. Light shone through the darkness at the age of 12 as I became lead singer of a band called Tracks. Got the job after singing a poem in a cappella in the English literature class. With singing and dancing, my emotions were unshelved, keeping a balance through what was a living hell. I never looked forward to going home from school. I'd rather be in a boarding house, no matter how strict the rules. Running away is the constant thought of the day, but not knowing where to go, I felt compelled to stay. I refused to call the police. I refused to tell people in school. I refused to tell my relatives, but Mommy was no fool, and my siblings knew the excruciating times that I was going through. As if that wasn't enough, I also had to suffer the sight and sound of my father's regular violent beatings of my mother, our beautiful, intelligent mother, who sometimes overdosed on aspirin, a cry for help undercover. To help her indeed, I was determined to do, but only mere words came out instead, as I encouraged Ma to leave Pa, as I would as soon as I could.
So we listen to Tamra story, you know. Tamra, you know, that track you're playing there is very I would say it's very touching, very moving, and I wonder if you could just explain a bit more what was going on in them time there with you.
Yes, brother Doug here. Give thanks and praise to the Most High. Love, light, and healing to everyone out there, all you beautiful people. You know, yes, this track is entitled "As Hell Became My Home." And but before I go into that, I heard you say something earlier on, Dougie, about someone who said, "Is it the same thing every week?" You know, you're talking about this mental health. You know, we need to talk about mental health every day. Never mind every week. We're talking about we see with the violence and we see all the nastiness that's happening in this world is happening every day. And we need to talk about mental health every day and every night, every morning, noon, and night. And we need to talk about love and honesty and beauty and cleanliness and godliness, and brotherly love and unity. We need to talk about these things every day. We need to meditate on these things instead of the crap that we've been bombarded with, via all sorts of different platforms and media operations, whatever you want to call it. Yes, indeed. But as hell became my home, this track here is yes, it is. It's sad. But it's truth. It's truth. It's just honest truth. When I got here, suddenly I descended into hell. I lived in heaven back home, and suddenly I found myself being beaten by my father every day for no reason at all. No reason at all. And treated as a slave by my mother, where I'm having to suddenly learn to peel potatoes, gut and scale fish, and I had to learn real fast. And I was 7 years of age. And suddenly I was bombarded with all these responsibilities and all these violent beatings. And then, so I was in a terrible place. And so that was no home for me. It was just a house. It wasn't a home at all because I wasn't happy. And, for it to be a home, you got to be happy
You
where
gotta be
you live.
happy, yeah.
Absolutely.
So, am I right in saying that you've kind of felt you kind of miss out on your childhood in terms of playing, having fun, and as normal children would do at that age. They just like to feel free and have fun, and probably didn't feel that you was able to do that.
Oh yes, big time, big time. I felt I was missing out on so much. Children calling around my house, asking me to come out to play, and my parents say no, he can't come out, or I have to tell them no, I can't come out.
Mm,
And also as a little child, it felt sort of embarrassing, really. You
mm,
felt like you got the worst parents on earth, because
mm,
everyone else's parents is allowing their children to play. But your parents, they must be monsters.
mm,
No child wants,
mm,
wants my parents as their parents because, there's no freedom to
mm,
play there,
mm,
you know.
mm. Okay then. So, in terms of school, how was your how did you get on with school, and how was school to you?
Oh, school was an escape for me. I look forward to getting to school. School is like going home. When I felt at home in school. I loved learning my lessons, and I just loved the sports as well. And so
Was
I
there any
just
particular sport you used to play?
I always loved football and
Mm,
cricket,
cricket. Okay.
and but also I love doing athletics and
Yeah, you look like an athletic man. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I really, I was into sports big time. I
Mm,
was, in cricket team and football team. I even started to enjoy rugby when we were introduced to it. I
okay.
just loved it all, It was great. But all I know is that when a child is brought up, under stress by their parents, getting beaten and being treated as a slave and not getting any love, it's all right when you beat a child and you say, I'm beating you because you've been rude to me for the last 7 days,
Yeah,
and you've been swearing and doing all kinds of things, that's not nice, and you started stealing and things like that. Rather than send you to get you locked up, I gave you, a beating, but not a beating that is abusive in the sense that you beat them in a way like you want to cut their skin and
mm,
and break their bones and stuff like that. But yeah, there's certain beatings as we know is needed. But we're talking about beatings with that's totally uncalled for, absolutely unnecessary.
mm,
Yeah, absolutely unnecessary. For nothing. Beatings for nothing. Because what we do now, we set up our children for a life of crime when
mm,
we do that to them.
mm-hmm,
And we set them up for a life of dishonesty
mm,
because they're afraid to tell the truth,
mm.
because they'll get beaten for it. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
And it's quite interesting because you're quite open in your discussion in terms of what happened with you, and yourself also fall in the trap, if I don't mind use the word trap, um, into crime. Because one of the things you saying that you had to find the money to pay the rent, and you thought to yourself, this will be the last time I'll get involved in crime or robbery, everything, and one thing led to another. You know, um, looking back now, um, how do you look at that journey when you got involved with crime and you was down there? I mean, what was Yeah, what was your experience and what was you going through? You?
Yes, you see, I'm just 16 years of age, an intelligent
Mm.
teenager, and I thought that, I'd be able to make it on my own. I'm young, I'm strong, blah, blah, blah. I'll make it in the world somehow.
Mm.
But one thing I was aware of was that I lacked guidance.
Mm.
I lacked, I lacked advice from someone. I lacked, parenting. There was no parenting, there was no advice, there was no counseling, there was everything. I had to work it out for myself. And I knew it was inevitable that the rent would be in arrears if I'm not working,
Mm.
and when that time came, of course, the negative forces out there, those self-destructive forces out there that come to tempt us to do, what is not right, so we end up in a place that is not right,
Mm.
came and said, well, we'll just do a robbery just once, and then after that we'll get back on track and we'll get back to our legal ways just to get ourselves out of trouble because we got to pay the rent.
Mm.
6 weeks rent, otherwise we're going to get thrown out, and
Mm.
we're not going to ask mammy for help, and we're not going to ask our mother, never mind our father, for help, but mammy, we know she'll help us, but we got too much pride right now. We don't
Mm.
want to go back so soon crying for
Mm.
help,
Mm.
we got to show them we can make it, we're
Mm.
going to, that pride got all pumped up and pushed me into the road of robbery.
Okay, and obviously, in terms of robbery, in terms of robbing people or robbing whoever, right? Um, am I right to say that that's when things start to go kind of pear shape in your life? Because one thing led to another, and obviously, you're probably meeting some hardened criminals out there as well. And yeah, am I right in saying so?
Yes, brother Dougie. In fact, things became pear-shaped the moment I was asked to leave the beautiful island of Dominica to come over here
Yeah.
to Britain, which
Mm.
they called Great Britain in
Mm.
those days. And, I'm sure a lot of people still think it's great. Yeah, they got some great things about Britain. Got a health service. A lot of people complain about it, and they've got housing and and things like that. These things are good. These are
Mm.
great things in a
Mm.
society. So let's not knock it. The
Mm.
truth is truth. But at the same time, yes, I my my trauma began when I had to leave,
Mm.
because I was uprooted. When you don't, that means you're uprooted from a place. It's a very traumatic experience,
It is. It
and I
is.
could never take root.
It's
And
true.
where when they replanted here, it wasn't easy to take root over
Mm.
here. I mean, the winters, I'm not, I wasn't, the winter come along. Oh man, it was horrendous. You wondered when is this cold gonna leave? And oh, so many things, so many things. There was no color. Everything was just gray and
Just great.
dull,
Dark. Yeah. Dark.
and it was, yeah, it was just,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to just deal with the food. It was inferior to what we was eating back
Mm-hmm.
home. You know.
It's quite interesting saying that because, I spent a little bit of time in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, so to speak. Yeah. And when I came back, it's like you're on the train and you're looking, everything's so grey and dark, just grey, just, and in the Caribbean is so bright and energy, life, and you
Yes.
come against everything. So I understand we can, and you can see why people get so
Yes, it's very
distra-
depressing,
depressing.
It's
Yeah.
very depressing. Even the birds, I looked up and it's pure gray pigeons up there. I said, my God. When I saw little brown thought they call a thrush or a sparrow, oh, the brown thing, they make it look a bit more colorful. With gray, 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 And back home we had all the yellow, red birds, green color, all kind of bird, blue birds, all kind of birds, and over here. Yeah, so it was very difficult to adjust
Mm.
to that sort of environment,
Mm-hmm.
and with the hostility that went with it as far as racism is concerned. Indeed. Yes,
But
brother.
talking about racism, 'cause I think you did kind of mention it when you were at school. You had to deal with some kind of racism. You had to fight, and I mean, share that with us. I mean, and like every single day you said you used to fight. So was it because they used to try to bully you or call you names or just
Well, it started off with names, nigger and wog and, that sort of thing. And I used to laugh at them, really, when that first happened to me until a friend called Raymond Ricardo in the same class, he said, they're taking the piss out of me. They're really, they're not being friendly at all. I just thought they were just, So when he said that to me, I used to steam in and on every occasion, and so I fought nearly every day after that. It was because I knew that I was being rejected, and I was being belittled, and I was being looked down upon, and so to get my self-respect back, I'd have to fight and beat the aggressor, so to speak, to regain my self-respect and so on, and the respect of others around me.
see?
This is the belief that went into that one.
And as you left school and into the wider world, do you experience again racism where you had to again start fight and because and the reason why I'm saying as well because I mean even myself um, from an early young age you know experience racism. But it's quite funny. It's quite funny because um, mine was more of a direct saying you black bastard so and so so and again you had these teddy boys that come at the pub and they see a bunch of young black boys they used to literally come and attack us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And therefore whoa you have to defend yourself or run for your life, you know what I mean? you know
Right, yes.
and thing
Yes, I
so
went through that
yeah.
as well. I experienced that too.
Yeah, so I've had that kind of in your face kind of racism as well as the subtle racism as well, and so forth. And to be honest with you, anybody who definitely in the sixties and seventies, say in the 70s and 80s, growing up, well, like myself, as young boys, and even now, but slightly different now, but would experience racism where you've been attacked by these so-called teddy boys or skinheads and whatever. These people go in the pub, they have a little drink, they tank up when they see a black boy, a black youth, and look, we was youth, you know what I mean? 15, 16, what do we know? You know? And these people, trying to murder you, you know what I mean, so to speak, you know. So we have to run for our life and we have to defend ourselves, And something, Tamara, a good thing we mentioned this because don't forget our parents, right? In the 50s and 60s, we had to discipline some of these people here, We had to put them on the manners because they try to come into nonsense, nastiness, right? And we had to deal with them. Seriously, I had to say, well, look here, what kind of busy idea we have to discipline them people now? And if it weren't for them, we probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
brother. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I give thanks to our parents who stood up, and they did the best that they could,
They could, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? In the 50s,
Yeah.
and we're talking about the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, in the 60s, 50s and 60s,
Oh,
That,
yes.
that to
Oh, yes.
discipline one or two of them man there
yes,
and put
indeed.
them in them place, you know what I mean?
Oh, yes, indeed.
You know?
I mean,
And
I remember my father telling me that if I get attacked, don't be afraid to use anything, anything at all to defend myself. He said He says, don't worry, son. I'll stand by you if you kill a man. Don't worry about that. Yes, that's but because just to show you the kind of environment that we lived in, my father would say, don't worry about it as long as you protect yourself. That's the most important thing. And he'd stand by him. I think that's the only fatherly thing that he ever, yeah, that he ever said to me, you know. Indeed, you know, instead he was the one attacking me instead. Not meaning to come off the subject. You see how crazy it was? He's telling me, watch out for all these guys out there, defend yourself,
So-
use a brick or anything to defend. It doesn't matter if you kill him, don't worry, I'll stand by you in court. And yet he was the one who was
Okay.
beating me.
Okay. Then.
In a
Well, I'm
very
gonna play
terrible
some
way.
of your music, and then after that, I want to talk a bit more about your music. Yeah.
Asking for help would be insane. I knew Mammy would be there for me, more than anyone else could ever be. But prompted by my pride, I chose bad instead of good. Without a job, it was inevitable. The rent would be in arrears. Hence my descent into robbery, to wipe away my fears. I said, do it. I'll only do it just the once, simply to pay the bill. Then I'd get right back on track, using my legal skills. But one robbery turned to two, and two turned into three. And as three turned into four, the only thing that could stop me would be the slam of the prison door. My partner in crime was Titus, a bad boy from approved school. Oh yeah, he was bad alright, when he grossed on me like a fool. We ended up at the Old Bailey, in the infamous court number 1. After waiting in custody for 7 painful months, of each day I counted every one. Though found guilty, being of previous good character, I was allowed to go free. As Titus was recalled to Boston, a young man I'd never see again, as he descended into the belly of the beast, accumulating over 30 years in jail. After the pain of prison, I said I'd never, ever return again, only to find myself reoffending and going to Boston instead. I thought of Titus, but as I knew him to be a grass, he could no more be a friend. More robberies followed that led to my imprisonment at HMP Maidstone in Kent. My fraudulent acts grew and grew. I was a violent gangster, part of a criminal crew. A thing I thought I'd never, ever do. There were Jaguar, abandoned Plaza, and fancy cars. Made-to-measure suits, regular shopping on Bond Street, and throughout the West End. Partying every night at the club, regardless of the expense. Relaxed, I listened to music at my leisure, while singing and songwriting continued to be my pleasure. With so many ladies I went to bed, memories to cherish in heart and head. Oh yes, I've carried a gun. Oh yes, I've carried a knife. But I thank God to this very day, I never, ever took a life.
Tamra, I'm listening to that music there and I'm really in some deep meditation, you know.
Yes, brother.
How did the music come about? I know you, yeah, get to write this piece about yourself and also what's the turning point in your life as well?
Yes. Well, this piece of music here came about because I was writing my book, my autobiography, and
Mm,
then suddenly I found myself saying, well, writing it in one form. Then I thought, oh, we'll write it in a poetic form as well. So I was
mm,
writing parts of my life in a poetic form, like the last track there, My First Flat. And these brothers were making music. We just joined up. And in fact, how that came about, as my memory's clearer and is getting clearer
clear
and
and clear,
clearer,
yeah.
it came about because I needed to put out an appeal for the From Rehab to Life Foundation that I'd set up.
Mm,
And no, it wasn't for that actually. I had to put in an appeal to asking for help to help me publish my book. This was it. Yeah, to help me publish my book, and these brothers they set up this appeal thing on the GoFundMe thing. The quick little video and blah blah blah. It wasn't really that very successful, but however, from there we continued to work together, and I was just automatically, as lyrics come to me, I write them down. And next thing you know, I've got this poem, and I say, okay. And then some more of the lyrics came, and this was about moving into my first flat. Then another one came along about um, dishonesty and violence, and sort of like that. And so I just name these lyrics that would come to me. I'll just put a name to them,
okay.
and and I was still in touch with these brothers, and so what happened? We decided to maybe go about it another way. Maybe if we could get an album together to help to, to sort of promote the book kind of thing,
Mm,
or to help to make money to get the book published, and so we just thought, well, maybe we'd just do a couple tracks, but we ended up doing 9 tracks, and 9 tracks is enough for an album, and so we just ended up with 9 tracks, and we came out with this album. And as you saying, my first flat, well, the thoughts and feelings and emotions around that was very deep, because you think, well,
mm.
how did I end up in
In
this
that place,
place
yeah.
here? Yeah, and that was part of it. My first flight, it all started there. That road that descended into hell. It started right there. That road that descended into dishonesty and violence started from my first flat.
Mm.
Although I'd been violent in school, but this is a different category now. This is like being against society now.
So the first flat, that's when everything started. That's when it started getting violent.
That's right,
Yeah.
and this is where my friend Titus, he was never in school. He was always in the Prue school.
Hmm.
Came from a nice family. I wish my mom and dad were I wish his mom and dad were my mom and dad. To tell you the truth, he got a lot of freedom, but he just abused the thing.
Yeah.
And this is another thing which can happen when you give a child too much love or too much freedom, whatever you call it.
Mm.
They can turn rotten. And yeah, and anyway, he ended up staying around my place. Because funnily
Okay.
enough, they threw him out because of his
Mm.
rotten ways. He just was a very rude and very ungrateful, and sort of want to boss his parents around. You
Okay
know what I
then.
mean? Like,
Okay.
you can't go around bossing your parents around. They're the ones who change your nappy and breastfed you, and you know what I mean, and all that sort of thing, and rubbed your forehead when you bumped it, and you know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Yeah, it kept you in good health. Yeah, so he came and stayed around my flat, and he was the one who said to me when we were in rent arrears, he said to me, well, what we're going to do? I says, well, we're going to have to go and get some money. And he said to me, how? I said, well, you're the criminal. I says, how do you go and get some? You're the one who's been involved in criminal activities. How do we go and get some money? He says, well, they call me Vander. Then he says, but Vander, I mean, you're the brains in school. You're the brains in school. Well, I said, well, okay, well, since you put it that way, I says, well, first to get some money, we got to go where the money is, to get it, and he said, where? I says, well, let's go up the West End. There's a lot of money up the West End, and there's all these lovely shops with lots of money in it, Let's go and take the takings from one of those places. Yeah, this is how it started.
See, okay then. Boy, this is just music to the ears, And what I'm going to ask you, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you what was the turning point, because I want to play some more of your music, because people need to know this brother's journey and his music. It was well put together. I listened to so many CDs and albums and by individuals, right? But this just really speaks to the soul. Let me make myself quite clear. It speaks to the soul of every human being, And any of us can fall in this kind of trap there. In fact, many of us are still in that kind of cycle still. See? But it's where it's being put together. It's just amazing, So what I want to do is I think, let me play this track, because I want to ask him what the turning point still, but I need to, where's my assistant here? I want to go back to his, this one we played earlier on. They have to, is the one we played earlier on? Did they have to pay?
No.
They didn't pay this one. Oh, so we can play this one here, yeah? All right, let's play this one here. Oh, I don't know how that come about.
Philanthropy was part of it too. My house was open
They have to
all
pay.
but
Listen
the
to this
few.
one here.
Protecting people, investing in others with something to do. Got real busy making music at Easy Street with star artists, creating songs, creating beats with live instruments that took you to the place that commences with the drum and...
Sorry, Tamara, when they said they have to pay, what do you mean they have to pay?
They'll have to pay, meaning that, you reap what you sow, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bass, with rhythm and lead coming into play, keyboards and brass section with so much to say, as lead vocals and harmony led the way. Rico was phenomenal on the trombone. Angus from Aswad was extraordinary on drums. Huey Isachar, a bass superstar. Sugar Minor vocals really sweetened the place. The voices of the Heptones, Trevor Hartley and Winston Fergus flew at a melodious and passionate pace. I laid on the ganja, food and drinks, cabs to ferry artists from A to B, and paid them cash accordingly. In a thick marijuana mist, we produced reggae you couldn't resist, like Kind Man, Visions, and Oja, to name but a few. Suddenly, Engineer Eddie called me to the phone. Heard my girl Makita say, my front door was chopped down that day. I stood silent with nothing to say. Kept cool and carried on recording till the session was done. Then went to the spot to witness my losses from jealous people, my trials and crosses. With their guile and greed, they never found the holy herb, the ganja breed, that was there in big supply, but it never caught their eye. Over $250,000 in sound equipment, vinyl, master tapes, and clothes were gone. That feeling in the gut didn't feel like fun. And as vengeful thoughts came my way, I heard the voice of God Almighty say, leave it to me, son. Put the posse and the gun and the knife away. You did no wrong, and they shall surely pay.
Okay, then they have to pay. They have to pay. You know, Tamara, what was the turning point where everything, you said to yourself, well, yeah, what was the turning point?
The turning point was actually I was in, on this occasion, I was in HMP Maidstone, and I was coming up for parole, and I thought, my God, you know, in prison you sort of reflect, you go into yourself and you reflect on your life and you go back and you see, you know, where you're coming from, where you are, and you even go into the future and where you're going to be when you leave the prison and so on. And anyway, I thought, man, to get parole, I thought, well, you know, robbery with violence, you know, because robbery is a violent act. Otherwise, you don't call it robbery. And the thing was is that I got on my knees, I remember, and I said, God, I said, if you grant me parole, I'm not going to be violent anymore, and I'm not going to be dishonest anymore. You know, if you grant me parole, this is what I'm going to do. And God granted me parole. And suddenly I was, suddenly I'm faced with the challenges of living honestly, no more stealing, you know, and all that kind of thing, no more robbing, no more violence, and, no more violence on my girlfriend either, or anything like, or on anybody, as a matter of fact. No more violence, full stop, you know. Yeah, and no more dishonesty, full stop. You know, I talk to people, I tell them exactly as it is, you know what I'm saying? No more people pleasing and, you know, and all that kind of nonsense. Just be honest and no more violence. And it wasn't easy, you know, because I say that I relapsed in that in as much as I stole a little and defrauded a little. It's on there, you know, it's on the album, you know, but by the grace of God, I got right back on track, you know, with some ganja I bought for sale and to make some money back, because my lawyer said to me, selling ganja is not dishonest. It's illegal as a substance, you know, under this act and that act, but it's not dishonest. So I thought, well, okay, I'll sell some ganja and make some money like that.
Money. Okay, let me play this track here then about this one here.
A martyr for ganja. Police stops and searches were a regular thing, with or without wearing bling. No matter what vehicle we were driving, on foot it was just the same. As we played the duck and diving game, with cloak and dagger and the gangster's swagger, we suffered persecution for the herb that heals the nation, keeping the peace in recreation, and gave us economic salvation from sus laws and police brutalization. They even took my collector's Mercedes away and said you'll never get it back again, even if I took them to court. And the judge ruled in my favor. They'd never give me back that car, 'cause they knew what I did for a living. It was their time to take and mine for the giving. Things got even worse, more blasé, as police corruption grew. I was jailed for 18 months for possession of ganja you couldn't chew or see, weighing less than quarter gram in reality. Like so many brothers in that game, for the healing of the nation in Jah name, a martyr for ganja I became. We were driving, on foot it was just the same, as we played the duck and diving game, with cloak and dagger and the gangster swagger. We suffered persecution for the herb that heals the nation, keeping the peace in recreation, and gave us economic salvation from sus laws and police brutalization. They even took my collector's Mercedes away and said you'll never get it back again, even if I took them to court. And the judge ruled in my favor. They'd never give me back that car, 'cause they knew what I did for a living. It was their time to take and mine for the giving. Things got even worse, more blasé, as police corruption grew. I was jailed for 18 months for possession of ganja you couldn't chew or see, weighing less than quarter gram in reality. Like so many brothers in that game, for the healing of the nation in Jah name, a martyr for ganja I became. A martyr for ganja.
Tamara, you seem to have a talent for music. I mean, is it something you're born with or you develop over the years? How did that talent for music?
That talent is a natural talent. It's a God-given gift. I give thanks and praises to the Most High for giving me the talent to sing and write songs and poetry and to recite them as well and to act them out as well and to, help others with it, inspire others through it, and also help to lift me up as well because, a lot of depression I went through, much of the time I managed a lot of my depression through writing. Even as a child, I used to write a lot of poems. I wrote hundreds of poems when I was a little child. Hundreds. And it's the same thing in adulthood as well.
Okay, then. I'm going to play some more of Tamara music,
Was filled with much despair when I was summoned to L'Angleterre to reside with my parents, that was certain. Though powerless, I resisted till the final curtain. My elder said, "Son, don't you want to see the snow?"
Just a little bit about this particular track here. What's going through your mind?
With an impertinent no.
Well, when I was writing this track, well, I just returned to that place. How did I end up like this? How did it all start? And that was where it started from, when I was told that uprootment that has affected me to this very day, psychologically, and spiritually, and emotionally, and physically, and intellectually, and consciously, and unconsciously, affected me to this very day. And this is why I know it is not good and it's not right to go uprooting people from a peaceful place. That's why committing crime is not good, because when you go around robbing people or going into people's houses and burglaring them and all that sort of thing, you're uprooting them from a peaceful position in life to one that is very unpleasant and very lacks peace. And you know, when you rob someone's peace of mind, what I got to grow up to realize is that I also rob my own self of that
So,
peace.
okay, I'm gonna play this track. I want people to listen to this track here carefully.
My heart was filled with much despair when I was summoned to Langley to reside with my parents, that was certain. Though powerless, I resisted till the final curtain. My elder said, son, don't you want to see the snow? I, the little boy, spontaneously replied with an impertinent no. Why, they exclaimed, looking puzzled and hard. I, the little boy, replied, I see the snow on Christmas cards. So with Mammy I went one day on a rowing boat to the big ship Genoa. So colossal it caused dismay. Venezuela was the first port of call as we cruised and sailed away. The sea was rough and filled me with fear. The food was not the same, oh dear. The next stop was Genoa, and from there a train to Rome. Then again we embarked on the big ship, till we docked in England, our new home. Victoria, the underground, oh it gave me such a fright. With windows that looked into darkness, as if day had turned to night. Where were the birds of color? The buildings, the clothes, so drab and gray. And when we entered our home in Hackney, there were no maids to my dismay. I recall back home they said, go off far and wide, England Street paved with gold. For there your future is sunny and bright, though the winters are dark and cold. I may have been young and inexperienced, and yet I knew the other half had not been told. I repeat, I may have been young and inexperienced, and yet I knew the other half had not been told.
I know you spoke about Dominica. What's Dominica like? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Dominica is a beautiful island. It's sort of clothed in a million shades of green, you know, gloriously green and mountainous.
Yeah, that's why I hear, yeah.
And it's got a lot of black beaches. There's white beaches too. It's very volcanic, and it's got the biggest reserve of Caribbean Indians, and also the biggest reserve of also the biggest population of maroons.
Is that
You know,
so?
in the
Dominica?
Caribbean.
How
Yes,
do you know that?
yes, I didn't know that until last year when my stepfather gave me a book on the history of Dominica. I was surprised at the amount of rebellions and things that went on there back in the days of slavery. But Dominica is a nature island. They call it the Africa of the West Indies.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
really
You know,
didn't.
like Grenada is like the island of spice, and you know, Jamaica is the island of wood and water. Barbados is the Little England. You know, what is it for St. Lucia? I can't remember again. But and Dominique is the Africa of the Caribbean. Yeah, that's how
Okay,
they
then. I didn't
call
know
it.
that. I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that at all. You know. Okay, and you know, there's people out there going through, mental health depression, and they're going through some stuff. What advice would you give to those who are out there going through all this kind of all this?
Well, my advice is to get close to God. We have to ask God for help. That's the first goal. We have to get down and pray. Get honest with ourselves, and ask God for help. And if you don't believe in God and you refuse to pray or to, to someone or something you cannot see or touch or anything like that, well, go and ask a neighbor for help. Ask a member of the family for help. Ask your boss at work for help. Even ask a stranger for help. A stranger could be the one to point you in the right direction. There are lots of angels out there. Just ask the universe for help. Look at the sun and say, "Hey, sun, go and tell the moon and the stars all up there in the heaven and the planets there. Tell them, say, I need help right now. I am going through what they call depression, and I'm getting suicidal thoughts. I can't take it anymore. I'm afraid I might actually act it out and commit suicide. Please help me before that happens. I've got children, or I've got loved ones. And I really, please help me because it's getting harder and harder." Or maybe the depression isn't telling us to commit suicide, but the depression is just telling us what a wicked and cruel world. You don't want to mix with anybody because everyone is two-faced. Everyone is a backstabber. You can't trust no one. They tell you they love you and then they steal from you and they hurt you.
But it's quite interesting to say that because I mean, people is people. Let's be clear about that. People is people. You're gonna have people do some crazy things out there, right? But I wouldn't go to people's just people. But what I would say is that be focused on yourself because you don't have time to worry about this and that because, as Tamara said that, I mean, yes, you do have some people just backstabbers and do some crazy thing, but that's them. That's their own thing they got to deal with, right? Focus on yourself and don't worry about that. You know what I mean? What I mean don't worry about it. Don't let that be your thing to stop it for where you want to deal with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't let it be an obstacle. Don't let it hinder you.
Yeah.
Or distract you.
That's the right word because people always seem to focus on other people and blah 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 blah. Right? I mean, they've probably got their own issues and everything. Focus on yourself, and people. In fact, people's just really mirrors. That's all it is. People just mirror, teach something about yourself and to learn and develop. That's all it is. So don't get caught up in, because, if you, in terms of agreement, people are so caught up in people's personalities. About this person, that person, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, right about now, I reach a mature age now where I don't judge people. Yeah, people don't know hang out and so forth, see? But I mean, I get to understand people going through their own stuff, their own individual stuff, and people's just people. Right about now, it's a focus of people who you are like-minded, who think like yourself, and focus on yourself. Because once you start to focus, you ain't got time for all these other things what kind of take you off track. Because people spend so much time focusing on so much negative things about other people, I think when you're focused, you won't have time for that kind of stuff there.
Yes, indeed, and a good way to recover from mental illness actually is to help others. Instead of there moping and thinking about poor me and how they did this and how they did that and how this, regret you did this or regret I did that and feeling guilt and shame about this and that. Go out there and help someone. Help someone. It helps us to recover. It's a very healing process.
But son, you've out of Tamara supreme wisdom, he said that the best way to overcome mental health depression is to help others. Because what that does, you're not focused not about you now, you're helping other people and you get rewarded in different ways. See? Very, very powerful what is because some people just it's all about themselves. Me. What's happening with me? Why this and this person, that person? Your head's just spinning around, right? Take a stack and start giving something out. Try help, and you'll be rewarded.
Absolutely. And another thing is if you've got any particular problem which you're trying to solve through helping others, the solution will come to you, just like that. Yes, you could be trying to find to solve a problem for weeks or months, and suddenly you decide to go and help someone else for a change, and suddenly that solution comes to you, and it's no longer a problem.
Absolutely. You know, so it's very important that that you know it's about giving and focus on other people, not about yourself now, right? I'm not saying that's not important, but you probably find that, as Tamara says, when you give and help other people, things will happen to you as well. You know, So, and that's the way it's about giving. Because you see, one of the things Anthony Robbins talk about, he talk about the six human needs, right? And one of the things he talks about is giving back, giving. Because the more you give, the more you get back. And I do believe that's the universal principle. You'll be blessed in different ways. I know that it gives you a different kind of focus now. Give you a different kind of focus. Yeah. So, Tamara, one question I want to ask you, right? What was your relationship like with your father when say, you left home and obviously you've been through prison and all that kind of stuff there. What was your relationship with your dad? Did your dad come and look for you, or did your dad speak to you? What was your relationship with dad?
My relationship with my father deteriorated rapidly. We never had a relationship in the first place, to be honest with you, and we never played football together. We never spoke. We didn't have anything. We just didn't have a relationship. We just saw each other, and he just barked out the orders, and I did. But my relationship with him, when I got into trouble and things like that, I didn't see him. He came to see me once, actually. Once when I got arrested for robbery, and he came to visit me. He came to see me in the cells downstairs in Old Street Magistrates Court, which is no longer a magistrates court by Shoreditch there. And as he looked at me through the bars, of the little window thing that you look into to look at people, he cried. He broke down
Yeah?
and cried. He cried, and
Seriously,
he
yeah.
couldn't say a word. And I thought, my God, I thought, the man actually got feelings. You know what I mean? And but I remember what he said to me. He said, "If you steal, he will never stand by me. But if I killed a man, for some good enough reason, whatever it was, he would stand by me. But stealing," he said, "he'd never stand by me." And after that, I never saw him again, actually, because I got in trouble many times more after that. But I never saw him again, not for many years, until I visited him in Dominica.
Oh, so you went to Dominica and stuff with that.
After a while,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay then. All right then. When you saw him in Dominica, what was the relationship like?
Well, when I saw him in Dominica decades later, as a matter of fact, prior to that, he had actually spoke to me. He visited me once at my home prior to that, and asked me if I'd like to buy a boat with him, so could do some business with it back home. I says, "Yeah, sure, I'll buy a boat with you," but I ended up getting a jail sentence, and I could have still bought the boat with him, but he didn't really pursue it any further. So that was that until I ended up
Yeah.
visiting Dominica, where I saw him on a couple of occasions.
Okay then. Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting that you said that when he saw you in prison, he kind of broke down and cried, and it's probably that. Well, I don't know what's going through his mind, but so when he sees his son, you know, his son in jail, and he feels so hopeless, so to speak, and it's quite emotional. You know what I mean? Yeah. So And when you saw him cry, did you feel like crying as well? How did you feel?
No, I didn't feel like crying at all. I just thought, oh well, maybe the man really probably he loves me after all. Maybe he does love his son in a crazy kind of way, because I can't believe a man loves his son and beats him every day for nothing. His son does very well at school and doesn't get rewarded in any way. His son is earning more money than him as a lead singer in a band, and he denies his son the equipment he needs to buy a bigger PA system so that they can play in bigger venues and earn even bigger money, which will go into his pocket, and my mother's purse as well, and so on and so forth, and always did as I was told, get back in by midnight. I was home at midnight. If I was 5, 10 minutes late, that wasn't bad, was it? But for someone like him being a minute late, that's a good enough reason, as far as he's concerned, or excuse, to give you a damn hiding. And you're not talking about any soft hiding. You're talking about lashes with the electric flex wire and with the most hardest and most brutal objects you could find in the house, and in a locked room, so there's no escape. Until he's tired of his
Right.
that wickedness, basically.
Right.
Madness.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna play some more of our beautiful brother. And this is my brother. I love this brother because reason why I love him, because he has become, as I said, the mess has become his message. And right about now, he's able to articulate what he's going through.
Ereline was my best friend, my cousin and girlfriend. I never ever had to pretend. We lived close together by the sea, on the beach of Lagon. I loved the beauty of her mind and skin, and her spirit deep within. That's
Look like you was in love them time, them man.
Yes,
sweetheart and darling. So when I had to leave, I was sorely grieved, as I held her hands that night on the stars and full moonlight. Although I was just a child, I felt like a man inside. I touched her intimately, enthralled by her beauty, knowing I'd soon be missing our touching, cuddling, and kissing. Although we were just children, we knew we were more than just friends, and that loving feeling would never end. Now all I'm left with is the loving memory and scent of her presence, now absent, and the sound of the waves that gently kissed the shore, with that sinking feeling, knowing I'd be seeing her no more. With that sinking feeling, knowing I'd be seeing her no more.
Yes. Tamara, you look like a man who have some serious love and relationships, and that kind of touching. I mean, I could see you when you put the picture in my mind. You're on the beach and holding hands, and you just feel nice, man.
Yes.
Caring the world.
Yes.
Just free.
Yes, Brother Dougie, that's exactly how it happened. I remember that evening at sunset on the beach, and it's dark, because, it gets dark when the sun sets, and we're just on the beach there, and you can just hear the waves, and I'm holding her hand, and I can smell her, I can smell her presence there, and her tenderness, and she's just a little girl. It's like 6 years of age, and I'm 6 years of age.
Mm.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, oh, I just turned. Yeah, just turned 7. But with being, but I've been going out with her from I was 6 years of
Six
age.
years of age.
But like I said in the poem, I felt like a man inside.
Mm.
Although I was just a little child. It's
Hmm.
a Yes, I wanted to marry that girl if I could. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's up to her now? You know what's that?
No, I just from I left the island, I never
Never see,
heard from
never
her
heard
or,
from her again.
or
Okay,
saw her again.
okay then. That's how it
Mm.
goes. But you got some brilliant picture, vivid picture in your mind where you paint of that energy, that feeling of just caring for each other and so forth. It's quite powerful, you know. Um, and to,
Yes, and the thing was as well, I didn't know at the time that it wasn't right to sort of be in love with your cousin in that kind of way,
mm,
because we were in love in a kind of a way where we were more than just friends in the usual friends sense,
mm, mm.
we were more like boyfriend and
Girlfriend,
girlfriend.
right, right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely. Coming back to yourself now, in terms of music, who kind of influenced you in terms of music, artists, and yeah, who out there today? Yeah.
Well, the first artist that influenced me was my mammy, grandma,
Mm,
Miss Sign Valerie, but then moving on to other artists, I would say, I was influenced by Otis Redding. I
mm,
was influenced by Jimi Hendrix. I was influenced by the Wailers. Before it was Bob Marley and the Wailers. I was influenced by quite a few great artists out there. I was influenced by, to be honest
mm,
with you.
mm. And how do you look at music today? Because I mean, and the reason why I ask this question because, as you will know, that in the definitely 70s, 80s, and probably to the early 90s, there was a lot more conscious music, and people feel more conscious and feel more relaxed with the music, and people sing along. But today, um, I would say at least 6% of the music is just totally, gone a bit pear shaped, slackness and so forth. So, yeah.
Yes, the music business has descended. It hasn't ascended. It has descended. It's actually gone backward, not forward. I mean, the introduction of even of CDs was a big con, really.
Mm,
It's far inferior sound to the sound of vinyl for a
mm,
fact. And also, the love of music has turned into the love of money. You just get people now, they just get a computer, they don't need no musicians or anything, and they're making beats and looking into cash in on many millions, from a beat that maybe took them an hour to build or something on a
mm,
computer, or
mm,
2 hours to build, or maybe it took them a day to build it on a computer.
mm-hmm.
But you got people building some tracks very quickly. It's not like back in the day where, for the love of music, the bass man and the drummer, and the lead and rhythm guitars got together with myself, and we have horn sections there as well, and we could have percussionists there as well, and backing vocals there as well, and keyboard player there as well. You know what I'm saying? And we're rehearsing, and I'm singing a song, and we're finding the key, and the musicians start playing into that key, and so forth, and we just build our rhythm tracks. It was the love of music, but now that love is not there anymore,
Right, right.
and so when the love isn't there anymore, the standards, go down. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you love a woman, you buy her flowers, and and buy her a diamond ring. When you just, when you otherwise it's just another woman. You just say hello, and that's it. And that's like how music has become without the flowers, and without
Mm,
the diamonds, and without all the beautiful gems of life. You know, it's missing. You know, from our music now. Yeah,
Right.
it's become very very computerized
Computer,
even.
right. Okay then. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna play not gonna play a track, I'm gonna play a clip talking about the whole thing about black mental health. And I want people to listen very carefully.
What goes on in this house stays in this house. I don't talk about my feelings to other people. Girl, that's for blacks. That's for white folks. Black folks, we got this. I'ma just go to Jesus and pray about it. I'm not weak. I'm not crazy. These are some of the common things I hear when I tell people what I do for a living. See, I'm a mental health therapist. Oh God, y'all, I said that word, mental health. You know, we don't talk about mental health in the black community. And that keeps a lot of people suffering in silence. So yes, as a mental health therapist, I listen to people talk all day. So first, let's explain what does mental health mean. Truthfully, it's the overall well-being of your mind. The issue we really have is about this word called mental illness. See, mental illness is just something that affects the way you act, the way you think, or you behave. And we all know there's times we act differently, we behave differently, and we feel differently. That's what mental health is. So as a mental health therapist, y'all, I sit and I talk about mental health disorders. Those are words like anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar. Those are examples of mental health disorders. So, as a therapist, I get great joy of helping people heal. I often get asked, why did you become a mental health therapist? I wish I had this really great, heartfelt story, but honestly, I've always just wanted to change the world or make an impact. And somehow, through my journey, I've gotten called to this world of mental health. It has been an incredibly eye-opening world. See, I get to help people heal. And I believe if I can heal one person, I can heal a family, and then I can heal from that family, I can help heal a community, and then I believe I'm changing the world with each and every person that I sit across from and we talk about what is hurting them. See, my goal as a mental health therapist is to create a culturally competent and culturally safe space to help people heal and grow and be the best person that they could be, live their best lives. See, because right now in this world, hurt people hurt people. And we are not healing our families. And because we're not healing families, one person parents from a place of hurt. They parent from a place of alcoholism. And then they pass that on to their children, and their children, and their children. And therefore, we keep living in a world of help, of hurt. And so my goal is truly to help change the world one person at a time by talking about that bad word, y'all, of mental health. So, what exactly does this look like being a mental health therapist? Well, see, I have this thing called confidentiality, so I can't exactly tell y'all all the business. But let's make someone up together. How about that? Let's call her Stacy, okay? So, Stacy, you work with her. You all get together occasionally for lunch, happy hour, dinner, do things like that. Y'all talk, y'all met each other. So you know each other pretty well. You do the same job. So one day, Stacy says, hey, let's go to dinner. You're like, sure. So you're sitting at dinner. She's like, whew, girl, I am just so tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. I'm just so over everything right now. I feel like I'm really like losing my mind. And you're looking at her like, not much in our job has changed, so kind of curious what's going on. She's like, I'm just so stressed out. I'm so overwhelmed. see, right now, every time I try to lay down at night, I go to sleep, but it's like I can't shut my brain off. I've got 10 computer tabs open at all times, and I'm just clicking, and I can't figure out what to do. My heart's always beating. I wake up, and I got butterflies in my stomach for no reason. And you're looking at her like, okay. And she's like, and you know, I got this work trip coming up. She's like, yeah, you got a presentation out of town. I know, it's out of town. What if something happens to my family while I'm gone? What if, oh my God, what if they restructure the job? What if I come back to no job? What if I have no job? What if I fall and hit my head? What if I get sick? Oh my God, what am I gonna do? So clearly, you're looking at Stacy like, girl, you tripping. Some of y'all out there might even be thinking, whew, Stacy sounds a little crazy. No, the reality is, it sounds like Stacy has undiagnosed and untreated anxiety. There's that word, anxiety. Anxiety is a mental health disorder. And actually, anxiety means feeling uneasy and nervous about something that you are not in control of. See, we all have anxiety. We all get nervous about things. But the reality is, sometimes anxiety can get to a place where it stops you sometimes from getting a good night's sleep. It can change your heartbeat. Sometimes your stomach hurts and you don't know why your stomach hurts. Your palms are sweaty. See, when it gets to that place, that's when you should come and see me. That's when you should go see a therapist. Because at that point, it sounds like it is really starting to affect your overall life. And so oftentimes, though, we don't recognize the signs and symptoms of a mental health disorder because why? What goes on in this house stays in this house. And we were never taught to talk about the things that are affecting us daily. So if I'm uncomfortable mentally and emotionally, I was taught you just hold it on. Why? Because it stays in this house. But those are the things that keep people suffering in silence. Those are the things that are having people not sleep. Those are the things that keep those generational curses from going on and on because we know it has to stay in this house. And also, we don't know what it looks like because we never were taught to talk about it. So oftentimes, we miss those signs and those symptoms. So what do you do if someone does say, I have some emotional or mental distress? People are like, I don't know what to do with that. It's not that difficult. Start with just being a listening ear. Just listen to what they say with no judgment. Listen, to help them figure out how do you find a therapist. We have this great thing called Google now. You can find just about any and everything on it. All you have to do is look them up. They want someone who is a male therapist. You can look that up. If you want a black therapist, you can look that up. But the biggest thing is just start with being a kind and listening ear. The other part is be knowledgeable. If someone is saying, I'm in emotional distress, just let them know that there is help for them and they do not have to suffer in silence. The other thing is, let's say when you and Stacy are sitting there at dinner, and if she looked at you and was like, ooh, I have a pain in my chest, or if I have a lump, I hope you wouldn't look at her and say, girl, it's just a lump, you'll be all right. I hope you wouldn't say, just pray about it, it should go away. No, I really hope you would turn to her and say, go to a doctor. And just like that, if you had pain in your chest, a lump in your chest, you tell someone to go to a doctor, well, guess what? If they're in mental health distress, if they're in emotional distress, go to a doctor. Find a therapist. We have to do a better job at looking at our mental health as our physical health. When we are in physical pain, we go seek a doctor. Well, guess what? We are in emotional pain and we are in mental pain, and we need to go see a doctor. We have to acknowledge that mental health is physical health. It is a part of our overall body. We are mind, body, and soul. We are connected. And so when one part is off, all parts are off. So just like we know how come most people's stomach hurts sometimes when they have anxiety, because the mind and the body is connected. Mental health is physical health. And we have to do better at when we are in any kind of distress, go to the doctor and acknowledge that, hey, guess what? The doctors can't really find anything going on with my stomach. My heart's racing, my hands are sweating, and the doctors are like, I'm good. They told me to go to a therapist. Then go to a therapist. Stop putting that off. Often, time and time again, we wait and we don't go. See, just like you would go to a doctor if you broke your foot, because after a while, you need your foot. It hurts to walk on it for too long, right? You need it. You need to walk. Even if you got to get crutches, it's a walking utensil. If you have to have a cast, you're going to walk. You're going to figure out one way or another. I've been having this foot for this long, and all of a sudden, this foot is causing me distress. I'm going to go figure it out, right? Why wouldn't you figure it out if your mind is in distress, if your emotions in distress? Because guess what? You're going to come see a therapist, and just like you might get crutches, you might get a cast, well, guess what? I'm going to give you some tools and utensils to help you feel better. What I'm going to say is, hey, let's try some deep breathing. Why deep breathing? Because that can slow your heart rate down. Because sometimes when your heart is going so fast, you speak fast. Your breathing will change. If you're not breathing the correct way, you will pass out. That's what hyperventilation is. That's why I'm going to say do deep breathing. Why am I going to tell you to do some yoga or meditation? I'm going to tell you to do that because that teaches you how to be mindfully present in your body. That teaches you how to slow down. Oftentimes, anxiety makes us feel we're going a mile a minute. So just like if you went to physical therapy and got different techniques and walking things to help you walk better and to have your foot heal, guess what? A therapist is going to do the exact same thing. Our goal is to help you heal and to help you get back to being your best self and walking on both feet. So that is a key thing you have to remember is next time you feel like I got a pain somewhere, please also take a moment and be like, how am I feeling? That's that word, that feeling word. You know, in our community, we don't really talk about feelings. And we have to do a better job because it is connected, like I said, to mind, body, and spirit. Feelings do count. The other thing we really have to acknowledge is mental health stigma is what is stopping a lot of us from seeking treatment. Did you know in the African American community, because of racism, socioeconomic status, and environmental factors, we are 20% more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Yet, of that 20%, half will actually go get treatment. So if I just said hurt people, that half that never got treatment is the ones who continues that going from generation to generation. That's why we have to look at this as an important issue. The stigma around it. Oftentimes people are afraid to be called crazy. They're afraid that they're going to be called weak. They're afraid, everyone tells me I should be able to do this on my own. Well, let me bust that myth. If you could do it on your own, you would have done it already. And the other part of that is the reality is there's these 4 things called general causes that you didn't sometimes do anything. Why? Because we know that mental health sometimes comes from biology. Biology, that means it's genetic. There's possibly it just was passed from one generation to the next. It doesn't mean that person got it diagnosed. It still means, though, it's genetically there. Sometimes it's just chemical. Sometimes medications can cause it, different sicknesses can cause it, hormones can cause it. There are situations, death, divorce, a really bad situation at work. Yes, it can actually trigger a mental health disorder. Or sometimes it's environmental. Back to ding, 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 environmental. Sometimes growing up in extreme poverty conditions, violent conditions, abusive conditions. There are situations that, yes, can trigger a mental health disorder. So you didn't do anything to cause this issue, but nonetheless, the issue needs to be addressed. And so we have to do a better job of recognizing that mental health stigma is keeping us bound. It is keeping us suffering in silence, and we have to do a better job about it. And with that, I want to say we all have a responsibility to be mindful of the things we say. Help people not feel crazy. Help people not feel weak. So that means I should never ever hear someone call someone crazy again. I should never hear someone say, ooh, that weather is so bipolar. That's pretty insensitive to a person who may actually have bipolar. So we have to be mindful that
Yeah. We just playing a clip with his sisters talking about mental health as a taboo, you know, and people as a ignorant people. Let me rewind that, right? Right, where people look at mental health as something kind of ugly, something kind of nasty, something kind of. I just explained that we all got mental health. You know, there's physical health. They all goes hands in hand. You know, when you go to the hospital and, for example, you broke your leg and everything. I mean, that's a physical because doctor can see that and he can deal with that. But when your mind, he can't literally look in the mind. Doctor can't say, spit your head open and look in the mind and say, well, listen, this not wire up and so. No, it doesn't work, sir. You know what I mean? You know? Because if you spit your head open, you probably won't survive from that. See? So we need to understand that it all ties in. It all ties in. And one of the tools she was talking about is meditation and yoga. And it so happens that Tamra, that's part of his discipline as well, meditation and yoga. And Tamra, it's quite interesting because I had a conversation with somebody some time ago, and I wish you was around. I wish you was around, my brother, because he was taking things on a different page. We was talking about health and things, but all I can say, I wish you was around. That's all I have to say. But I wanted to talk a little bit about meditation and yoga.
Yes, meditation and yoga. Yoga and meditation was introduced to me when I was going through depression, actually, in prison once. Long before I descended into drug and alcohol addiction in a really bad way. Yes, and he was a yoga teacher, this man, but he ended up being a criminal as well, and he taught me certain exercises and how these yoga exercises actually were using the muscles that we don't normally use. These
What's that?
internal,
The
yeah,
yoga?
the yoga
Okay,
exercise.
then.
Yes, hatha yoga was the one I was practicing, and which focuses on the breath.
Yeah.
And as we know, breath is life,
Right.
and yes, and he said it was exercising muscles internally that never got used, and I'll feel a difference after a very little while, which in fact I did. I felt like, because I was going to the gym every day and jogging every day, but when I did those yoga exercises and with the meditation to go with it, after the exercises, and even during the exercise, we meditate as well, because we
See.
can, we can focus on ourselves being that bird that that posture, or we can, and things like that, or you can just meditate on the sun or on anything while you're actually doing the exercises themselves. And for me, that combination of yoga and meditation, it really erased the depression at the time. I'd say within 2 weeks, actually, I was walking on air on that particular occasion. I've also used yoga and meditation to heal myself from overactive thyroid.
Okay, then, that's
Which I
interesting.
was once I received medication for that many years before, and it sort of helped to how could you say, solve the problem for a while. But then it returned, and when it returned, I didn't realize it was the same thing that was happening again. But as soon as I did, and more of the same or similar sort of drugs were prescribed for me, and seeing that they had these opiates in them and heroin and all kinds of things, morphine-based stuff was in there in that medication. I thought, no, 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 no. And especially as a man being in recovery, I was recovering from drug and alcohol addiction, and recovering from violence and crime as well, and dishonesty, So I thought, no, 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 because I was led to believe that if I got those kind of drugs in my system, I could end back on Class A drugs, on crack and cocaine again, and drinking alcohol as well, even because I drank alcohol abusively, and yeah. So what I found was that what I found, in fact, was the prayer and meditation I used instead of medication, pharmaceutical medication,
Go
and
ahead.
it worked.
See.
And it worked. After 18 months of doing that morning and night, suddenly the doctor said to me, the blood is good. After many blood tests, 6 blood tests over 18 months, he said the blood is good. It seems as though the drugs have worked. And I didn't tell him otherwise. He believed it was the drugs, but I never took the drugs. And I didn't tell him. It was down to prayer, and meditation. So have faith. It's a very powerful stuff. You know, as they say, silent rivers run deep and so on. Well, it's real deep, all right. You know, that silence there. There's healing there.
Healing there. Do you teach yoga and meditation? Because that's a great combination. Do you teach that?
No, I don't teach that. I just practice
Just
it
practice it.
myself.
Is
Yes.
that for you like fancy teaching?
No, not really. I've got too much on my plate with teaching people about steering them away from drug and alcohol addiction and
Okay.
violence and crime. I think that's enough for me.
Enough
and
for you. Okay then.
writing songs and writing poetry and you know and all that sort of
Okay
thing.
then.
And
Well-
running a charity. You know, I think
Well,
that's
the reason
enough.
I'm asking because I mean, in the future, right? I'd like you to do a workshop around yoga and meditation.
Yes.
You know, definitely because that combination is so powerful. But at least you like to talk about it as well and get people to do the basics. You know, but
Yes.
definitely love you to do that. You know what I mean? So we
Absolutely.
just got to put that in place in the near future.
Yes, yes,
Definitely,
yes,
definitely. But
absolutely.
right on that, in terms of because I know you have a foundation is it back to rehab? The foundation's called Back to Rehab.
From Rehab to Life
from
Foundation.
rehab back to rehab foundation. Just a little bit about that, and yeah, give us a little some information about it, how people can get involved or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, From Rehab to Life Foundation is born from the desire and also the knowledge and understanding and the wisdom that I had to use my divine gifts, my God-given gifts, to help others, and that all the experiences that I went through that people would find very embarrassing to tell other people, to share with other people, all the stuff I've been through that, you know, would find people feel shamed about it and, you know, they wouldn't want to talk about it and so on and so. Even people who are now, you know, on the recovery side of it, you know, they don't mind talking to a psychiatrist or you know something like that, or maybe a group of people in therapy with them, whether it's in an AA Alcoholics Anonymous meeting or Narcotics Anonymous meeting or in a rehab center.
Rehab center, yeah.
You know, but just to come on here like this and talk about it, no, it's very few people who can do that, and I thank God. God gave me the courage to do that. God said to me when I asked God, "What shall I do?" He said, "Use your talents, you know, to help others." And I says, "Well, you're singing, songwriting, and all that." He says, "Yes, just do it." And you know, with honesty, so and integrity, and so this is what you know, so this is how this has come about. Basically, this is how From Rehab to Life Foundation came about.
Okay, I'm gonna play a little clip of Dr. Cheryl Grills, and I want to listen to because she's a very powerful sister.
Freedom from mental slavery. And so I stand here before you today as part of something much bigger than myself, representing the heart and soul of the collective efforts of Community Healing Network and the Association of Black Psychologists. So, imagine a world where your intelligence is deemed to be substandard. You graduate from high school valedictorian, but are told that maybe you might get into a state college, forget private universities in the Ivy League. And you watch your incredibly talented brothers barely finish high school and forever bury their talents in their dreams. Imagine a world where in college you live every day in fear that someone will realize you are an imposter. You do belong in a state college, even though you end up graduating magna cum laude with honors in 2 majors from Yale University. Imagine a world where you get followed in department stores, passed over in favor of other customers in restaurants, skipped for beverage service in first class, denied an apartment because of your race, get asked, "How'd you get a PhD?" And countless times hear, "Wow, you're so articulate for a black person." Imagine a world where you go to bed each night praying that your male children make it through another day without falling victim to hands that swore to serve and protect, and hands from a community that struggles not to turn on itself. Imagine a world where your heart breaks often as you see a steady stream of dreams deferred, talents unrealized, hopes dashed, and lives snatched away in their prime. Welcome to my world. This is also the world which, a few days ago, a 15-year-old black girl, a child attending a pool party in Texas, was viciously assaulted by a police officer. It's the world in which the lives of Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and oh yes, Miriam Carey, Tanisha Anderson, Yvette Smith, and many other unarmed black men and women counted for so little. It's the world in which Damas Pakata, a young soldier of Ethiopian descent, was recently beaten by police, giving rise to protests about police brutality against black people in Israel. It's the world where a police chief in England explained that Afro-Caribbean people are more likely to die from chokeholds because you see their necks are different from the necks of white people. It is the world in which black people everywhere can't breathe. And it is the world I wanted to help change when I became a psychologist. I wanted to understand and build on the incredible resilience in African and African American people, the talent, spirituality, sense of community that I saw in spite of suffocating oppression. And so I went to college and then to graduate school and studied clinical psychology with great enthusiasm, only to be met with great disappointment. You see, my world followed me. I didn't see me or my people in the material I was required to master. I was forced to learn theories and diagnoses that pathologize black people, black children, and black families. And my world followed me to my first full-time faculty job interview, where I presented my research on stress and depression in black women. I forgot to exhale when I was told, well, that's all very interesting, but do you plan to do research in the future on real populations? I practice my profession in this suffocating world, and I still can't breathe. Happily, along the way, I found the Association of Black Psychologists, where I was surrounded by colleagues who looked like me and who were dedicated to the liberation of the African mind, the empowerment of the African character, and the illumination of the African spirit. And so, as a graduate student, I became a member, and many years later, I was elected national president. I was preparing to challenge the lie of black inferiority. It was shortly before I began my term as president in 2011 that Community Healing Network and its founder and president, Enola Aird, asked for ABSI's help. You see, back in 2006, CHN had pinpointed the lie of black inferiority as the root cause of the devaluing of black lives. And they started building a movement for the emotional emancipation of black people, mounting a frontal attack. Their goal? To engage a critical mass of black people in the movement for emotional emancipation by the year 2019, the 400th anniversary of the forced arrival of Africans at Jamestown Colony, so that by the year 2020, we as a people would begin to see ourselves in a whole new light. CHN asked for ABSI's professional expertise to refine and develop one of their key strategies, emotional emancipation circles, self-help support groups. Enola's argument was simple and straightforward. She said, in response to the many injustices of racism, black people can protest and march. We can sign petitions. We can weep. But until we confront and work hard to overturn and overcome from the lie of black inferiority, we will not change this world that so profoundly devalues black lives. We can debate, we can legislate, we can litigate. And we've done all of these things for generations. Yet here we stand, disparities, and disproportionalities on almost every social indicator. Education, heart disease, employment, income, housing, you name it. The physical enslavement of black people ended, but the attitudes and behaviors driven by the lie remain part of the cultural air we breathe in America and the world. Our oxygen has been overtaken by the carbon monoxide-filled lie of black inferiority. And now I realize that, as my daughter put it, God had been stalking my mind and my world, presenting painful racial life experiences to prompt
Yeah.
deeper empathy,
So we listen to
offering tools to
Dr.
interpret that
Cheryl, and one thing she's touching is your thing about inferiority complex, you know. And the thing is that, you know, when we look at the whole thing of racism and the whole thing we've been conditioned and we've been brainwashed, to be conditioned to feel inferior, you know, and that's deliberate because it's about control. See, it's about control. So one thing Tamara has been talking about, that it's about being self-worth, being the word I'm looking for is to be valued, you know, and to be loved. Because if he had the value from his father or being loved, you know, and it's not about blaming this and that, whatever the case may be, because, you know, it's a question of really understanding, right, what's been happening. And when you feel inferior, you don't feel valued, right, and you don't get that valuation from your parents, right, you feel less. And in this case, as a man, see? So it's about being valued and understand your self worth, you know, because the whole society here we're dealing with is dealing with mental slavery, yeah, and it's about we feeling inferior, and that in itself causes us to be a bit of key, see. So we need to be conscious to day and be aware what's going on with the world around. I'm going to play a bit more of Sister Cheryl.
Could you? Ergo, the need for emotional emancipation. These circles are gatherings in which black people are invited to breathe freely so that we can think more clearly and begin the crucial work of replacing the lie of black inferiority with the truth of black humanity, as CHN puts it. And so my journey began. I went to Ferguson in the wake of the killing of Michael Brown, and to Brooklyn in the wake of Eric Garner's non-indictment, and to Baltimore in the wake of the killing of Freddie Gray, to help with community healing from all these traumas. I also went, though, to plant seeds about a global movement for relief of the historical and continuing trauma of enslavement and racism. CHN and AB-Side knew from the very beginning this was not just a U.S. problem. It's a global issue requiring a global movement. And so I went to Cuba and to Ghana and to England and to Suriname. And everywhere I went, I heard the same thing black people were saying right here in the U.S. The session almost feels like a 12-step meeting, but for black folks dealing with trauma. This is so painful. I've been carrying this stuff around forever. I didn't even know I needed healing. I feel like I can finally exhale. It's as though the late black psychiatrist Frantz Fanon reached through Eric Garner to remind us that as a people, we can't breathe. We are suffering under the weight of racism. And we revolt simply because, for many reasons, we can no longer breathe. But we must breathe in order to heal.
When you look at me, what do you see? Now, I'm going to go through some of the things that I typically hear. To the very astute, I usually get I'm black, I'm bearded, and I'm strong. I also
Okay. So we was playing a clip earlier on by the sister Cheryl. I don't know if Tamara Tamara want to make a comment what he heard by the sister talking about, and just talking about was about how we feel inferior and how the system really attacks us. I don't even want to make a comment.
Yes, well, I always, I do remember it saying about we weren't allowed to talk about our feelings. Everything had to stay at home, and that's where it started at home. Not being able to talk honestly about how you feel or what you're thinking is very important. And a lot of people grow up are very frustrated because they never ever could talk about their feelings, and these feelings explode into all different
get I
sorts
look
of
like.
things later on in life.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I mean, being able to talk about your feeling that itself, it's like you feel strangled. You feel like something's holding you down, and you can't express. You can't talk, and that's why it's very important for well, men and women to talk. Women naturally just talk to their girlfriends and their friends, but as a man, you don't have to talk and everything, and you hold that thing that it's like someone putting a rope around you and just gradually just strangling you, and you're dying. You know,
Yes, and
dying.
that's what it does. It does. Holding these things, suppressing our feelings. That's what it does. It creates overactive thyroid or underactive thyroid, which are killers. It creates heart attacks. It creates also opens the door to cancer,
To cancer.
diabetes.
Yes.
All sorts of terrible kidney disease, all sorts of things. One effect affects the other, and it just snowballs. Like those side effects from pharmaceutical drugs. Absolutely. So we've got to
NBA
talk about our
superstar
feelings.
James Harden. Almost definitely the poorer version. I get hip hop superstar, Emmy Award winner, Donald Glover, aka Childish Gambino. Yeah, that too, right? And last but not least, I get Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent. Now, one of my goals is definitely to get rich or die trying. I think Sally Mae is putting the emphasis on or die trying, right? But see, what I don't hear is Phil, you look like somebody that lives with depression and anxiety. Phil, you look like somebody that was suicidal for 15 years, every day, 5 to 6 times a day. They don't say, Phil, you look like somebody that was driving on Interstate 95, wanting to crash your car to end your life. No. Because see, here in America, when we think about mental health, we think about the homeless man who's walking the streets, talking nonsensically to themselves. We think about the white celebrity who takes their life via suicide. We think about the white mass murderer who goes into a high school and takes the lives of innocent children. Or it's usually your president who loves to tweet venom from the hip. But see, rarely does the conversation speak of a father of 2 kids, someone who possesses a master's in exercise science, a master's in social work, somebody pursuing a doctorate. Rarely is it a person of color. Rarely is it a black man like myself, until now, because black mental health matters. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is black mental health, and why is it differentiated amongst racial and ethnic lines? Black mental health are the individual and collective experiences that influence the wellness of a community. Trauma is the biggest influencer of black mental health. We're talking about historical trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, the Tuskegee experiment, up until present day trauma, when you see somebody that looks like you get killed in their home. Rest in peace, Botham Jean. When you see somebody who's living with mental wellness issues get killed by the police. Rest in peace, Laquan McDonald of Chicago, Illinois. Or when you see somebody that looks like you get killed by somebody that looks like you. Rest in peace, Triple X Tentacion. See, when we talk about trauma, trauma is unique to the individual, and I'm no different. There were 3 impactful traumatic situations that I've experienced in my life outside of the genetic predisposition, because my grandmother lived with schizophrenia. I hearken back to being in 8th grade, 13 years of age. On the way to school, my mother has a nervous breakdown. She's crying. She's pulling at her clothes and her hair. She's cursing. I felt helpless because I couldn't help her, or I couldn't help myself. And see, I was expected to continue to go into school that day and achieve. It's funny, when I first started telling this story, I told my mother, listen, I'm telling the story of when you had a nervous breakdown. And she said, Phil, that didn't happen. Now, I know I'm getting older. I have a few grays, right? But I swear I remember that. And then she called me a week later and she said, Phil, I didn't know you remembered that. As if I wouldn't remember the most traumatic situation that I've experienced in my life. And that typically happens. We're often expected to just continue on because we are so resilient as a people, because we do survive, and we've survived for hundreds of years. And I was expected to survive and go into school that day and perform. And I did, because like many of us, I learned how to suppress my emotions and my feelings. But what if I didn't? What if I went into school and I started arguing with peers and fighting? What if I started arguing with the teachers? What if I did criminalistic behaviors within the community? Would I be deemed incorrigible and unable to be in the school setting, in the community setting? Or would anybody care that I just experienced this traumatic situation that has impacted me? Fast forward to my 12th grade year, 17 years of age, January 2001. My mother said, Phil, come downstairs. She said, Phil, your brother Bobby died. And I started crying. That was probably the only healthy coping skill that I had at the time, right? Because being a product of the hip-hop culture, hip-hop tells me when somebody dies, you either go out and get some liquor or you go get a rest in peace tattoo. Well, I wasn't old enough to drink. That would happen once I got to college, right? But I went out and I got this rest in peace tattoo. As if that was going to do something, if that was going to take away the pain of losing a primary relationship. It didn't. And people ask me, Phil, well, how did your brother die? See, the opioid epidemic is popular now. But in the black community, in the hip-hop community, especially amongst black male, it's always existed. He was one who liked to use codeine and Xanax. I don't know what he was trying to cope with. I will never know. I went to school that Monday because I didn't have anybody to say, Phil, stay home. Because my mother was going through it because she just lost her only child. And I went to school feeling all of this emotion. And I remember it like yesterday. I was sitting in computer class. Miss Williams, my computer teacher, came up to me. And I don't know what she said. She said, Phil. She could have said, Phil, what was the score of the Eagles game last night? I let her have it. I blacked on her. I cursed her out. Why? Because I had all this built up anger, all this built up rage. Because see, when we're talking about depression and anxiety for black men especially, it doesn't look like somebody laying in bed for 6 and 7 days on end. No, it manifests itself through anger and rage. I ended up getting suspended that day. And Ms. Williams and I were able to laugh at the situation years later because I was able to cope with it and understand what I was feeling.
Yeah, that was Philip talking about black mental health. And if you go into YouTube, you can get as much information. you know. But as I said, there's so much information around the whole thing about online around mental health, black mental health, and this is something we need to be talking. As my brother made it quite clearly from the beginning, we need to be talking about this thing here every single day. I'm not just talking about it, but talking about stress, talking about our situation, talking about and see how we can support each other, and talking is about healing as well, and not about talk, it's about doing as well. Because, as the brother said, where's the problem? It's a solution. One thing he was talking about, one of the things where the brother was very liberating, is yoga and meditation. That's a powerful combination. I've never heard that one. And one thing I would like the brother to do in the near future is to talk about yoga and meditation as a tool in terms of empowering them and uplifting someone in a dark place. See, So what is a problem? There's a solution, but we have to talk. I don't have the answers. Let's be clear about that. I don't have the answers. You know what I mean? I'm just providing the space for people to talk and to express. See, I definitely don't know the answer. I'm still learning. I'm a baby just behind the tail. You know what I mean? Just holding on and just grabbing much information. See, but I definitely do not have the answers to this. But there are other people out there like Tamara, there's Dr. Kinsu, who I rate highly. You know what I mean? The sister Sam, who's a pastor, Samantha rather, who's a pastor who's been through certain challenges. We'd love to get her be part of this, and to, if we don't have to come down or to do a phone in, but very powerful sister. There's so many people out there, but it's how we connect, with each other and get the message out there. Because one of the things me and Tamara was talking about is that we need to be going into schools, universities, colleges, even to people's homes. But we need to get ourselves out there and get the message out there. See? Very, very important. Very, very important. So that's where we're at. So what I want to do at this point here, Tamara, I want to leave the final word with you, because, again, it's really a pleasure to have you among the family. Your input, your insight, your wisdom, your in depth, your experience is so valid. You know what I mean? You're like a diamond. You're like one of them rare diamond stones. You know what I mean? People travel, probably thousands of miles just to find a piece of diamond stone. You want an uncut diamond stone among us, my brother, and I really do appreciate you. And the funny thing is that when the first time I met you, right, and we just kind of gravitate towards, but obviously I didn't know nothing about you. I remember when you had a conversation, I see someone had a conversation, and God is great, because God is just bring us together, and we have a serious mission, purpose in life. If I'm not doing what I'm doing right now, I'll probably go mad. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do. You know what I mean? God has grabbed hold of me to keep me upon a purpose and a mission. And I find my purpose the last, I would say, 10 years. So the last 3 years now is really defined now. And think, and my mission purpose is to hook up the brother like Tamara, you know what I mean, who to me is one of the greatest man out there. And I want people to, because it's going to be on online, I want people to share this information among as many people out there. See, because this information, you will never, we're not on a DVD page. We're just ordinary people trying to make a difference in the community. Yes, my brother Tamara.
Yes, blessed love, light, and healing to everybody out there. And, I'll just say this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, the thing is this, we get courage to change the things we can by doing by committing a courageous act. We don't say, oh, God, give me courage, and we're waiting for God to give us courage. We do a courageous act. It could be a simple thing like answering your front door. You know, it could be a simple thing like opening our letters, because I know when depression comes around or certain mental illnesses get hold of us, we don't even want to open our letters. We don't even want to even answer the door or the telephone. So we get the courage to, and once we take up the courage and we do something like answering the door or answering the phone or asking for help, we find that we get stronger and we get more courage to change more stuff. And what we discover is that we can't change people, places, and things. We can only change ourselves. So it's getting the courage to change ourselves. And in order to do that, we have to be honest. So let's be honest with ourselves. Let's be loving. And when we love ourselves, we don't lie to ourselves. We tell the truth. We're honest about it. So let's be honest, and let us give God all the glory, the glory, continually. Give God the glory. Give our Creator the glory at all times, and never, ever, ever, ever feel like you're alone, because, to tell you the truth, we're never alone, because God, our Creator, is within each and every one of us. The spirit of our Creator is in us. If it wasn't for that, I couldn't talk to you. I wouldn't be able to walk. I wouldn't be able to be animated at all. I'd be like a statue. So, let us just commune with our Creator. This is about an inner journey. This is not an external journey. This is an inner journey, of discovery of ourself, of becoming one with our true self. They were talking about how we were brought up with, what do you call it, that thing, low self-esteem. There's another word for it, which inferiority complex. I remember the police and a lot of people would go around saying, oh, racist people would say, oh, they've got a chip on their shoulder. Chip on their shoulder, these black people and all that. But really, that chip on the shoulder represented what? Inferiority complex. Or they took our anger as being one because we've got an inferiority complex. I wouldn't say that in every case we were angry it was because of an inferiority complex, because there's a lot of injustices being done against us, even now. But let's focus on the positive and do the right thing so the right thing happens, because the action sometimes is doing nothing, and sometimes the action is actually doing something. We have to know when to act and when not to act.
When not to act.
Blessed love.
Blessing love. Okay then. And again, Tamara, this is your life, my brother.
Thank you, brother Dougie.
This is your life, you know what I mean? And your man family, and it's really good to have you expressing and sharing, the joy, the love where you have. So give thanks every single time. So give thanks.
Continually. Blessed love.
Hospital and looking at the prescription and thinking to myself, hold on, I did a scene in acting. Valium is a crazy people drug. Are they telling me that I'm crazy? So I ripped up the prescription and I started telling myself, mind over matter, mind over matter. You have this, Stacey, and you have this, mind over matter. And I beat my anxiety. I beat it. I beat it for a week until it came back. And it came back with such a vengeance. And I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to explain to you what I went through. And I want you guys to help me out. I want you all to close your eyes. And I want you to picture your heart. And it's beating at 1,000,000 miles per second. And every time it beats, it's growing and growing. And it's in this cage. And the cage is getting smaller and smaller with every beat. Open your eyes. That's exactly what I went through for weeks, and I couldn't understand it. I felt like I was dying, and I felt like I had the control to stop it, but I just couldn't stop it. I would walk down the street, and I would literally stop and do this. Beat my chest, because I felt like my heart was locked in, and I couldn't open it. My parents pleaded for me to come home, but I didn't want to come home.